Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we read Wizards and Warriors. This is the fifth book in the Worlds of Power series. So the Wizards and Warriors book, it's kind of an exciting story. It's a little dumb, but there are some pretty fun moments in it. I don't think I like this book as much as the other books. Even though it does follow the game very closely, it sort of follows it to a fault, and there's not really much of a reason for the main character to be there. He really doesn't do that much in the book. Like, I think in the Simon's Quest book, the main character did a lot more to help Simon. And in the Blaster Master book, the main character was very crucial to what was going on. Here, I think the character from the game, Kiros the Knight, would have been just fine if he hadn't taken Matthew along with him. Mostly because Matthew he doesn't really need to be there, and there's really not much of a reason for him to be there. They do find all of the different items from the from the game. Our heroes run around, they collect a lot of the gems and the keys, and they get to the different levels in the game. The battles are just very rushed, though. There's a lot of just Matthew, who is supposed to be our link between the real world and the game world. A lot of times he's just kind of standing there, watching Kiros do all the work. It's very odd. I've kind of come to expect that the battles are going to be over quickly, because that's just kind of how these books have gone so far. But I wish the author had spent more time talking about, the bosses and everything, and less time just sort of stopping the story dead in its tracks so Kiros and Matthew can, talk a little bit, just so they'll just stop dead in their tracks, and they'll sit down and rest, and Kiros will explain his backstory to Matthew, and it's kind of weird. But it works for this style of book, but for me, it was sort of weird to read that. I wish there had been more focus on what Kiros was doing and everything, and less on, less Matthew in the book, to be perfectly honest. So the book starts off with Matthew, and like I said, he's our link between the game world and the real world. I think he's okay. He's a bit horny, to say the least. He talks a lot about the different girls that they are saving through this and how beautiful they are, and that's sort of what he's focused on. And he kind of falls, he falls head over heels in love with Kiros' sister that's in the book. It's weird. It's just a little weird for him. I get why he's like that, because I think he's supposed to be 14 in this book, so he's just kind of lusting after every single girl that he sees, which makes a lot of sense, at least to me. Yeah, I just kind of, I don't know. It's very weird to me, because he focuses so much on that and not really anything else. He's kind of disinterested with a lot of the other stuff that's going on. At least that's the way the book read to me. Anyway, he's in his class, and he's kind of having trouble with a creative writing class, because he isn't at all creative. He's just kind of, so that's just not the thing that he's good at. So he's having trouble coming up with a story, and he goes home, and, for some weird reason, Kiros the Knight is in his bedroom for no reason. And Kiros needs him to be his squire, to go with him and help along the way and rescue all these maidens and rescue the princess. I wasn't really expecting there to be an explanation for why Matthew was chosen, and there really isn't. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. So like with the other two, well, at least with Simon's Quest, the kid's playing video games and he's very into Castlevania. That's why he gets picked. Here it's just kind of random. Kiros is like, yeah, that guy, he's going to come with me. And that's what happens. And then they go on an adventure throughout all the different levels of the game. And Kiros explains that Matthew is apparently he's immune to all of the other creatures in the game. So none of the creatures see or attack Matthew in this unless it's by accident. And so there's a lot of times where Matthew's just kind of standing there while Kiros is fighting, and then Matthew runs off to go, find keys or gems or something like that, or find items so Kiros can get them. It's weird. I was reading this and I was thinking to myself, why does Kiros actually need Matthew there? Because he could probably have just found this stuff on his own. I guess Matthew does teach him how to climb trees, which I found just incredibly stupid. I was like, you're telling me this guy Kiros doesn't know how to climb a tree? Yeah, that's just not believable to me. So along the way, they are kind of rescuing different maidens who have been kidnapped by Malkill, who's the big bad guy in this. And they're all, well, they don't really have much of a personality. Two of them do. Like when they're going to save this redheaded woman that's been kidnapped, and she's giving him shit for not doing it fast enough. I thought that was pretty funny, and I thought, hey Matthew, if you're gonna try to get with one of them, try to get with her, because she seems a little bit more sassy than the other ones, and would probably be a lot more fun. I don't know why I was thinking that while I was reading a young adult's book, but whatever. And then Griselda, who happens to be Kiros' sister, is given a lot more shine than the others, and Matthew just falls madly in love with her. Which I think was kind of dumb, because I mean, even if he was allowed to stay there and he tried to get with Griselda, I don't think it would end well for him. Especially since Kiros, he kind of seems like the guy who would challenge Matthew to a jousting match for his sister's hand, and the end result of that would be Matthew being dead. I don't think Kiros would intentionally try to kill him. I just think that's what would happen. Matthew would get, run through with a jousting lance, or stabbed in the face with a jousting lance. Either way, it wouldn't end well for Matthew. And spoiler alert, Kiros gets killed like 2 or 3 times, as far as I can tell in the book. And then he kind of just gets willed back to life by either Matthew or the princess. I thought that was kind of strange while I was reading it, and then when I thought a little bit more about it, it was kind of like, you die on the boss, and then you get your second life, and you get to keep playing, or you hit continue and you can keep playing. So that kind of made sense since it's a video game book to me. At least that's the way I thought it. I thought it was kind of fun. It was interesting to see something like that where there's not much of an explanation given to why Kiros is brought back to life. Like, he gets stabbed and poisoned by a spider and dies. And Matthew kind of runs over to him, checks for a pulse, says some stuff, and then all of a sudden, Kiros comes back to life, kills the spider, and is like, I was dead and I came back because you saved me, Matthew. And I was kind of like, well, that's nice for a young adult's book, but, reading this thing probably, a good 30 years later than I should have, I was like, you need to explain that a little bit more to me, because, that doesn't make too much sense. At least say, you gave the guy a potion or something like that. And like the other 2 books I've read in this series, things get wrapped up real quick at the end. Like, really quick. Kuros ends up killing Malkil, who leaves behind like a pile of black gems, which that didn't make a whole lot of sense. They could have just said ash or something like that, but no, black gems. I guess that makes sense going by video game logic. You kill somebody, like you kill a wolf, and all of a sudden like some chainmail armor drops on the ground or something weird like that. Whatever. Anyway, Kuros kills Malkil. Then there's like a flash of light, and Kuros tells Matthew, like, we'll meet again someday. And then Matthew is brought back to his house. I mean, he didn't even get a chance. I mean, he comments on not getting a chance to talk to Griselda one more time. But as I pointed out, that's probably a good thing because, he most likely would have, honestly, he probably would have been tossed in the friend zone, and he would have just kind of pined after her and nothing good would have happened, and he would have just been wandering around wondering why she's sleeping with a random noble person and not with him, and he would have just had a whole bunch of stuff he would have had to have talked about in therapy once he eventually returned to the real world. So it's probably a good thing. I'm probably thinking way too much into that, but that's just some of the weird stuff I was thinking about while I was going through this book. It's fine. Like, he goes back home and realizes that he's apparently written all of this stuff down, so all of this was probably happening in his head while he was trying to use his imagination to come up with a story. And it seems like it worked out for him. His dad comes home, they make dinner, and then the book ends. That's pretty much it. Now let's talk about probably the one thing that I found way funnier than it should have been. But one thing that I found kind of funny in this book. So let's talk about Karen Douglas. I'll try to keep this as short as I can because I kind of feel like I've gone a little bit over the time that I wanted to. So Karen Douglas is a woman that Matthew mentions very early in the book when they meet the First Maiden. She's apparently the most beautiful woman I shouldn't even say that. She's the most beautiful girl in school that Matthew knows. And he proceeds to compare the first damsel to her and talks about how much more beautiful than Karen Douglas that this first maiden is. And I kept laughing about that throughout the entire book, where he would bring up another maiden, and I would just think to myself, but is she more attractive than the Karen Douglas? Because it's just a name that the author threw in there, and there's no build up to it. It just kind of felt like they're trying to link it back to the real world in some way when it really didn't need to be. And I just found it really hilarious. And I was thinking about adding in a whole bunch of weird stuff to this, like while I was reading through the thing, I kept thinking, well, I mean, Karen Douglas won the Miss America pageant, and she represented all 50 states. That's how attractive she is, and just a whole bunch of other weird stuff. It was something I was laughing at that I seriously doubt anybody else would find funny, but I just thought that little joke, it wasn't even a joke, like that little mention of somebody from Matthew's life and comparing all of these, random maidens from a video game to Karen Douglas. I just thought that was really hilarious. I don't really know why. I just thought it was very funny. So let's get into my final thoughts here. I think this is a fun retelling of the plot of the game. I was a little worried when I was first writing out all my thoughts on this that I was being a bit too negative, because there are some pretty dumb things with the book, but it's still a very fun story. I kept having to think this isn't meant for me, this isn't meant for some crazy 38-year-old person who just loves reading books about video games and stuff like that. This was for young adults, and I think it's a very enjoyable story. I was thinking back to when I was a kid and I was going to the Scholastic book fairs because they would come to my school every year, and I was thinking, yeah, this was probably a book that if I had known about, I would have bought from one of those book fairs. Because it's kind of fun. It's fun to read stuff about video games, especially when you're a kid. You read a kind of a dumb story like this, and it can be fun for however long it takes you to read it. So that's going to wrap things up, guys. I don't really have much more to say about this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Definitely if you think I was being too harsh, let me know. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.